Welcome to R1 2026 for Sage Intacct. New year, some new features, and as we see a rapid decline in enhancements and even support for legacy systems, there are teams across the globe that are working on the development and refinement of Sage Intacct. So you're going to be continually getting enhancements with Sage Intacct. And if you're on your homepage, you can click read the release notes, which will bring you in and show you all of the updates that are part of this release. We do not cover all of them. We only cover the ones that are pertinent to our customers. So I recommend that you click in to read the release notes and just have a read through that and see if there's anything that we don't cover that is applicable to yourself. As always, when they do a release, they do not automatically update the permissions for particular roles. So because they don't obviously know who is supposed to get those new permissions. So if there is an update and there is new permissions that are associated with that update, you will need to go in and update the role to add those permissions to it. And just a reminder of how to do that, you're going to go to your applications dropdown, click into company, admin, roles, and let's say, definitely for your administrator role or admin role or whatever it is that you call that, you're going to want to click into your subscriptions and just add those permissions. So let's say it was something in accounts payable, you would click permissions here, make sure it's turned on. You can even just do the hit all, save, and save again. And then, so any permission that is updated with this release, if there's a role that you have that needs to be applied to, you do have to go in and do that. And as we go through the different features that have been added, we'll mention if there are changes to permissions. So this release, the heaviest hitter we're going to see is the addition of the work order management. Really, really nice for service contractors to see something that is within the system for that. Nice addition. We're going to have another video where we go through that in depth. But just for the purposes of this video, I'm going to go in quickly to cash management. And in our interest and charges section, we now have a new document number field. So if we go in to add bank interest and charges, we'll see this document number, which did not appear before. So it's just going to help with your bank reconciliations, etc., to have that information there. And this will appear on reports. So that is just one of the features, and stay tuned for what else is new in R1.
For this next release item coming out in Sage Intacct's 2026 R1 release, Sage is introducing a new standard dimension for the construction subscription, a work order dimension. This dimension will be listed next to your other cross-company dimensions. You'll see it under company at top level, and you'll see I have a work order dimension here. And it will also be available during all of the document entries to code to that work order dimension in Intacct, which will then make it available over in the general ledger transactions and therefore can be reported on in your dimensional financial reporting over in the general ledger. So for more information on it, please check the release notes up in your homepage here in Intacct. And you'll see here underneath the release notes, they're basically introducing a new work order management and work order dimension. It's also going to go through here how and what you need to do to enable work orders and configure the work order management before you can use it. We'll go through that now and take you through what you're going to need to do. The first thing you're going to need to do is enable that over in your subscription area. Now, if you have the construction edition for Sage Intacct, you're going to be eligible to enable that right out of the gate. If you don't have the construction edition for Sage Intacct, you're going to need to reach out to your Sage Intacct business partner and talk to them and ask them how you get this enabled for you. So in this instance here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go into the setup area in the system. I'm actually going to go over to admin and under subscriptions. You'll go down to the bottom here. You're going to look for work order management. And you'll see it down here in the bottom. You're going to want to make sure this is enabled. And then there's a brief configuration that you can go in and do right here under configure. I've already done this, but you're going to be able to give it its own work order number sequence. So as you can see here, I just set it up for a WO and then a consecutive number. And then you're going to be able to enable some, kind of additional fields for tracking purposes that you want to see if you're going to enter and create some work orders within the system. You can turn these on and off as needed. And I have mine all turned on for now. Once you do that, what you're also going to want to make sure now is that dimension is available and enabled in each of the modules. And you want to start with General Ledger. So inside General Ledger, you're going to go into Configuration. And as you scroll down here, you're going to see your list of dimensions and make sure you have this work order dimension enabled. And it has to start in the General Ledger. So you're going to want to do this first in the General Ledger. Then you could proceed to go through any other module that you're going to use the work order dimension in. You know, the major modules like purchasing, order entry, expenses, inventory, all of that is going to be enabled, and also accounts payable, accounts receivable, and projects. So in each of these areas, you basically want to go into the configuration of that module, and I'll show you in purchasing here. And just like you saw in General Ledger, you're going to have the ability down here to turn on this work order. So you need to make sure you turn this on, or when you go to do data entry, you're not going to see it as an available option. So once that is configured, you're ready to start setting up your work order management, and you should see a new menu item for that on your screen. See here, I have work order management. Now, chances are you probably won't see it off the bat. And what that typically means is you need to assign security to this new section. So before you try and go into it, make sure, number one, if you can't see this, you probably don't have security, talk to your admin, whoever assigns security, and make sure that the roles that are needed to be set up are set up and configured for work order management. For example, if I go into my roles here, and I'm just going to go into the admin role. So I'm going to say subscriptions here. And you'll see a new area called work order management. You're going to want to make sure you click on permissions and assign and set up the permissions accordingly based on the roles. Once you do that, you may have to refresh your screen or log off, log back in to eventually see the work order management menu item on your screen. From there now, you do have some setup you can do in work order management. You're going to see right in here under all where you can actually set up work orders. They also give you access to customers and employees right from here as well, and along with creating your own reports and views. Over in the setup area, you do have some additional tracking types and setup items that you can, in the service world, that you can use to configure your work orders. So for example, work order types. I have some samples set up here like preventive maintenance, service call, whatever you want to track in the system. Call types, for example, I put in HVAC, electrical, PM, service, whatever you want to use as well. And then you have problem codes and states. And what's nice about states is basically you can track the progress of the work order in here with states. And so I set up a few of these called unassigned. Maybe I'm going to put the work order in, but then I'm going to assign it to somebody later. Then a started, a scheduled, a completed, a closed. And in each one of these states, one thing that's kind of neat is I can come into here and say, for example, when it's unassigned, maybe I want to leave it in an inactive state. And this would potentially keep anybody from accidentally coding to this work order yet in time entry or anywhere else in the system if it was inactive. That's an optional piece here. But these can be set up, and they can also be set up during your work order creation. But if you spend some time ahead of time, get these set up, you should be good to go. Once you have these configured, basically you have the ability to go in and create work orders. And I can do that from right within here. I can hit the plus button. And you'll see all those fields that we saw earlier, all the different type fields are here. You know, the work order ID, it's going to generate a number once we save it. So I might come into here and give it a name and say no heat for, let's find a customer first here so I can filter on my customers. And let's say for, let's go to the US Army here. They have no heat, and I might just want to list out maybe 2nd Street or something like that. Oops. So you could fill all that information in. What's nice is you can use the employee dimension, and this can act as your technician. So if you want to track who you've assigned the work order to, you can pull up your employee list here and assign it. What I did was I also set up an employee called unassigned. So maybe I want to report on work orders that are in the system that we haven't scheduled out yet, you can do that as well. I'm just going to go ahead and give this to Frank. And then you have a work order date. You can fill in today's date, whatever the date is. You have a more extended description, so maybe what's the problem, more detailed problem of the work order. Excuse me. And now there's those type fields that are set up. And, with smart rules and things like that, you can make these all, I'll give you warnings or errors, if they don't get filled out. But let's say it's a service call and, it's related to no heat. So it's probably HVAC, but you can see here, you can add these on the fly. So I'll just say HVAC. And then you have a list of the different problems that you might want to track and report on later on. But let's just say, let's add a new one. We don't have one here for heat yet. So let's go click add new. And I'll just say no heat and get that problem code set up. And then here's those states I set up earlier. So I'm going to say this is an open work order, or maybe we did assign it and Frank, we scheduled to go out there this afternoon. So I'm just going to give it a state that is scheduled. And then you can come back into here and track when it was closed and if that is complete. You can link it to an entity or particular dimension. Some people do elect to create a project. If they're using Sage Field Operations or something like that, you could create a service project here if you want to get all that coding also to a project. And you could do that here. If I want to code to that project, you can code to a particular specific location. So if you have multiple service sites or multiple locations that you want to track work orders separately on, you could do that here with the locations. And departments is usually an important one. Maybe you have a service department that you want to track. So you're going to be able to link to all that dimensional accounting right within here. And then there's those extra fields that we saw in the first configuration where you could fill out information like maybe customer purchase order, estimated hours. And this stuff can populate from other third-party products as well, like SFO, where they're feeding the work order information right into here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save here. And now you'll notice here, we have a work order. I have 2 work orders set up in here. Actually, I have a few more. I have some set up at the entity level, but if I say include private, you can kind of see here, I got some different work orders. And with anything, then you can make views. And that's what's going to be really powerful with this tool is now you can start making a bunch of different views. So maybe you want to see work orders that you haven't assigned yet. You can make a filter on that and have a particular view for just unassigned work orders. And, work orders completed but not billed. So you're going to be able to do all this with this dimension now. So it's a very popular, powerful tool. So those are in the system. So now that we have those work orders in the system, now you'll see all throughout Intacct, you're going to be able to code to those work orders just like you would code any other dimension, department, location, project, all of that. You're going to be able to do that in all those screens. So you should notice in different areas in the system, like let's say we need to order some parts for that work order. I might go into purchasing and create a purchase order. And let's say I'm going to order some stuff for Buffalo Building from Buffalo Building. And I don't have my PO numbering turned on, so I'm just going to give it a number, but you can have that pre-fill PO number. And then you can fill all of the information that you want to fill out here. But you'll see here, you should see another work order dimension. If you don't have it on the entry screen, check your show details. You'll see it in there. You can always add it with your edit entries layout as well. So in this case, we're going to order, and we're going to order it for that work order we just created, the no heat work order. And you could fill out your department, or you can have it pre-fill in as well from a project. And then what are we ordering? Is it an inventory item that we need? Is it, let's just say they need a new filter. So we need to order a filter, and we need to order 2 of them. And the vendor quoted us $15 for each. So you can go ahead and get a purchase order in there. And now you can actually run reports on Show Me All POs that have a work order on them. Okay. And then when the invoice comes in, they'll be able to receive it or create a vendor invoice. And that work order dimension is now going to show up. And when we create a vendor invoice, we're creating a general ledger transaction, right? So it's going to want a vendor document number. And we'll hit post here. and we'll let that post into the system. So at that point, we now have a general ledger entry. And you'll notice in your posting details here, if we go take a look at the journal for this AP journal here, you'll notice on my journal entry, I have a work order dimension now. And now that opens up a whole new world of reporting for you. I'll show you a quick example of one I created. Not real pretty, but it will show you what it can do. In addition to that, you're going to have this all over the system. You're going to have it in receivables. So if you want to create an invoice for it, I'm sorry, not receivables, if order entry, if you want to create like, a particular quick bill invoice or, in the system, you're going to be able to code it to that work order as well. And like if you're doing time through staff timesheets or my timesheets in Intacct, you'll now notice if I go in and enter some time for Frank, who we assigned that work order to, we could come into here. You will need a project in here, so you probably want a service project set up. I have one set up, and I'm just calling it service work for a cost code. It'll be labor. Let's just say it's regular. And then over here, you'll notice I have my department filled out wrong, but yours would pre-fill in correctly. And you'll notice here you'll be able to code time to the work orders. This you cannot do before. So this is fantastic right here. I can say it's for work order 4. And he did 6 hours on Friday for that. And then you can keep going. Keep entering more work orders, more work orders. I'm just going to enter the one. And we'll hit submit. That can create a charge, a cost that, again, post over to the general ledger. And now you'll have all that work order dimension reporting in Intacct now. Last but not least, I'll show you just a quick custom report I created just to kind of give you a look and feel of what you can get out of the system. But now you'll be able to, generate all kinds of reporting off of that work order dimension. And basically, if I go into reports and I made a custom report, again, not real fancy right now, but basically I just called it work order. But basically here, you'll see if I run this report, you can do some filtering. So you could do, maybe just for the month or, whatever I'll just do for, life to date. And then you could filter. So you might want to just look up one work order. So you can see here, I can filter that 4 that we just did. And do I want to show details or not? I'll say, yeah, I'll show details. You can also make graphs, so we can do that with graphs. But if I do a quick view, this is a cost, almost like a cost report for your work orders. And let's see what I did here. Let's take a look at this one. So you can kind of see here for work order 3, here's all the transactions and where they came from. This was a labor entry. Okay. And basically then over here, we have some cost sales material entries we made for $45. So I can see the cost for this work order is $445 right now. And then you can drill into it. So if you want to go see the setup, you can click on it right from here and you can get back into your setup. So there's going to be a lot of possibilities with this new work order dimension that's coming out in Sage 2026 release 1. And I'm looking forward to configuring that with all of you. Thank you.
With this release, we see the ability to release retainage from a primary document. So within the purchasing module at the subcontract or purchase order level, you can edit that primary document and release retainage right from that screen. So let's get into my demo instance and I'll show you around. So we'll go to purchasing and I'm going to go to subcontracts. And then remember, you've got to edit this. And then we're going to navigate over to the primary document details tab. And you'll now see under the accounts payable bills, which is where all of your subcontract or purchase order invoices will be listed with all of the details of the retainage that's been released and what's still remaining. But there's now a release retainage button. So we'll click into this and let's see what we've got. We've got the total held, the total that's been released with like the round percentages of been released and what's remaining. So if I type 20 here, it's going to release all the retainage lines that haven't met that 20% yet, not anything that's already released 20%. So it's on the total, not the remaining. So let's actually bump this up to 50 since I've already got 20% released. I'll future date this. And then you just hit release and it does everything in the background for you. It's going to give you, if some of the lines have already been released to the amount of 50% as we chose here, it's going to say it skipped those and all the remaining lines have been released up to 50%. So we can go back now. It takes you back to the top of your primary document here. So we'll go back into the details. And here is the 50% I just posted. And this has got all of our details here. There's every line with the amounts. We can go here into the retainage release details. It's just showing us all of, like, per line what the amount was released. But also in this batch here, this is familiar for people who have released retainage through the accounts payable screen. This is basically our subcontract here, and then our subcontract invoices, the sources, and then the amount remaining on each. And since we're at 50%, looks like it's half and half. So test it out. We'd love to hear what you think about it. Join us on Q&A daily if you have any questions. Thank you. Sage Intacct has rolled out GL account reconciliations. These are for all your accounts that you know they should be zero, or you know what the balance should be, but it's not AR/AP, so it doesn't have its own aging, and it's not cash or credit cards, so there's no in-system reconciliation. So this is for prepaids, accruals, undeposited, bad debts, stuff like that. So let's see what's required to set it up. So click on the Setup Reconciliations. You'll need a document sequence. We can create that when we go to the configuration for the general ledger. So at top level, we want to make sure that in the setup configuration, we have in this top accounting section, enabled GL account reconciliations. And here's where you can create and add a new account document sequencing here. I've already got all that in, so I'll hit save. And then on here, you will have to turn it on for each account you want to do reconciliations with, just so you don't have a big long list in that screen. The requirements for this are that it has to be a balance sheet account. It cannot be mapped to any of your cash management accounts, i.e. checking, savings, or credit cards. And it can't be one of the configuration offset accounts for AP or AR or the alternate accounts for either of those two. So in the general ledger GL accounts, we can turn this on. Let's turn it on for our prepaid expenses. So we'll edit the account. And we're going to click this Enable Account Reconciliations for this account. And then we'll just select our sequencing here and hit Save. Then you're typically going to want to do this at the entity level. So in General Ledger, we'll do Account Reconciliations. And I'm actually going to do my undeposited funds account because I'm having a hard time getting it to balance to zero. So I've run a general ledger here just to see when the last time I know it was zero. I know it's zero here in the end of June, but let's go back all the way to October 2024. So I'll do a custom range, and you can do this by month if you want. But I'm going to do this for a custom range, so I'll do this through today. I'll hit View Results. This is just showing the unmatched transactions. I can show you what it looks like with the matched ones on. So I'm going to check off all of my opposing debits and credits. Just like in the regular reconciliation screen, you can flip this by all of these. I find the date the most helpful. And it's tracking up here the total that I've selected, both in debits and credits and the variance. So I'm looking for $1,000. Looks like I don't have this $1,000 somewhere in here, so let's leave that unchecked. Or I missed it, so we'll do the 37. 7. No. Let me check these off real quick. Seeing that 0. And I'm going to hit match just to, then I'll hit view results just to reduce the amount of things I'm looking at. So I'll match transactions again. View results. So as of today, my balance in this undeposited funds account is $82,500. We select everything. We're by $1,000. Let's actually see what this was. So you can click into here. See, this is a deposit summary. Looks like it's an offset thing. So these are the things that aren't matched. So yeah, there's my $82,500 that we're off by. Looks like this is the $1,000 here. It's offset by this payment. Bring it back. That's where it is. We'll match it. And now if we hit view results again, it's going to show us just these two that are unmatched through today to get us our balance. So for this on the undeposited funds means I've got these two deposits that I've made the receipts for but haven't actually deposited in the bank. So good to know here. You can do this with prepaids. You can do this with your accruals. Test it out, play with it. Let us know what you think. Thanks. All right. I know we talk about the Intacct import service almost every release, but this time they've done something we can all be truly excited about. We now have general availability for importing general ledger journal entries. Yay. So let's take a look and test one of the most complicated journal entries I know to do, and that's a multi-dimensional payroll journal entry. So again, in company, setup, import data. We're going to go to our new import service here. And we're going to scroll down to the general ledger section. You'll see that all of these have templates, but I'm going to use my own Excel file and I'll show you how we can map the columns you've got to the columns that are required for these imports. So I'll hit create. Then I'm just going to drag and drop my file here. It's going to take it a minute to extract it, especially because mine is, 2,500 lines long. So it's going to prepare some mapping here. So what it's got on this page, on this preview page, is what it suggests that everything's going to be mapped to. And then it's going to hop between the source, which is my Excel document, and then the destination, which is how it's going to format it. for the import. So here are the suggested column labels and what it should be in Intacct. So yeah, my journal code is my journal ID. The line details, yes, those are the memos. My abbreviation for department does go to department ID. Employee code goes employee ID. Branch is not my project ID. This is my location. So I will dismiss this suggestion and I'll show you where that went. D is not for document, it's for GL is for GL account. JE name is not my contact, so we'll dismiss that one. And then here's previously mapped. This is from any prior imports you've done with similar naming conventions and then where it was mapped to in the past. So if you use the same Excel document and use the same column headers, it's going to remember that. So if every time you put, GL, the GL accounts to this GL, it's going to remember that. So I forgot, we have to hit apply on these. And that's going to throw that down into the previously mapped. And then unmapped, these are all the things on my source document that do not have a destination in Intacct. So let's edit this one. This JE name is the header description here. I'll hit confirm. D is and we can type in here, debit. Confirm. My branch, and let's hover over this. Yeah, this is my location ID. Confirm. C is credits. And my PJT number is my project ID. Confirm. Okay. So you can look again, see where everything is mapped. And then empty is everything that you could have put in Intacct or could have had a column for and has somewhere to go in Intacct, but I did not need all of those. So once you've got all your columns labeled, you'll hit complete, and then it's going to try to map everything from your source document into the new format that you just created with the help of our import tool here. Okay, so now that everything has been brought in, it's got all my valid records. Well, here's all my valid records. And here's the ones that have errors. So this column or row here, this was my totals check row. So I'm actually just gonna come in here and delete this because I don't need that for the import. And then this, it's telling me, and it's gonna tell you why the error is here. So this says an account can either be a debit or a credit. It can't be both. So I'm gonna delete that. And then that should fix that error. So we'll revalidate. Awesome. So everything is validated. And be sure to have at least a journal. The description is required as it is required when you enter a journal entry manually, and a post date column, and then debit and credit, obviously, with your GL. Like everything that's required on the journal entry, you should have a column for, and everything else is extra. But let's go ahead and hit import. I do want to point out that this is very much like Excel. You can come in here and mess with it. You can come in here, filter your columns, sort them, replace empty cells, search in here, select a couple things, Let's hit import. I like that it tells you how much time is left. So if you wanted to go get a coffee while it says importing, you could. You'd know how much time you'd have left. Awesome. It says 1 record imported successfully. So exciting. So let's exit this. So it's going to ask you if you want to delete this record, or you can exit and save it. But let's go ahead and exit and delete. We don't need it to keep it in 2 places, so we'll hit confirm. Now let's hop into our journal entries into the payroll journal and see our recently imported transaction. All right. Here it is in all of its glory. So yeah, play around with our new journal entry feature for Sage and let us know what you think down in the comments. Thank you.
The last thing we want to mention as part of R1 for 2026 is the release of Sage Intacct Data Cloud, which is going to provide secure governed access to your Sage Intacct data directly in Snowflake. And if you're not familiar with Snowflake, it is a cloud-based data platform. So for anyone that's already using that, this is going to be a huge enhancement. It's just something that we wanted to mention, and we will have more content on that to follow. That is going to conclude our videos on R1 for 2026. Thank you for staying with us. As always, you want to make sure that you're updating the roles for any new permissions that came out. And if you're looking for any enhancements to be made, any changes, post that on the community or let us know.